Hello and welcome to the third pre-alpha preview of Timefight Zone. Since the last video, we've added a new enemy to the game. Her name is the Coven and she has three main attacks. She has rapid-fire straight-shot fireballs, a short-range arc of fireballs, and a ground shockwave attack. When the Coven is near the player, she can do all of her attacks. She'll shoot straight for the player for a few seconds, then switch to repeatedly doing her shockwave attack. The best way to avoid the shockwave attack is to jump over it, so the Coven will randomly throw in some high fireball arcs to catch any players who aren't keeping an eye out while they're jumping over the shockwaves. After a few seconds of shockwaves and fireball arcs, she will return to shooting the player directly. When the Coven is too far away to use her shockwave attack, but she can see the player, she'll alternate between shooting directly at the player and chasing them. Another really cool thing we added is the shop. In keeping with the game's theme of old horror movies, the shop is a video store, and the shopkeeper is Serling as a nod to the game's title. We achieved the black and white film effect you see on the shop using a custom shader. The black and white effect is simply achieved by adding up the red, green, and blue components of each pixel and dividing the result by 3. To get the film grain, we then multiply a film grain texture over the regular texture in screen space and randomize the offset of the texture 16 times a second to look like a grainy old 16 frames per second video. Finally, every time we change the offset of the grain, we also randomize the brightness of the material to add a flicker to the objects and complete the effect. We haven't made the shop interactive yet, but once it's done, you'll be able to buy videotapes that have different effects like increased damage, lower ammo consumption, or increased movement speed. It's a pretty subtle tweak, but it's worth mentioning that we added movement leaning, so you lean in whatever direction you're moving in. This makes movement feel a little more fun and satisfying, and as a fun side effect, since shooting pushes you backwards, and moving backwards leans you back, there's a subtle recoil effect that tilts the camera up when you shoot. We added functional alt fires to the guns. The machine gun has a crazy fire rate mode that has increased damage and ammo consumption. It's good for getting out of tight spots, and you can even fly around with it if you have the ammo to support it. The shotgun has a grenade launcher, mostly just as an excuse to implement explosions. Explosions work as you would expect. If you're in range of an explosion, you take damage based on how close you are to the epicenter of the blast. Both of the alt fires enhance both the combat and movement potentials of the weapons they're applied to, while still leaving the weapon with a relatively specific case usage so that no one gun is useful in every scenario. We also added health and armor pickups. There's not much to say about them since we already covered health and armor in the previous video, but we ended up recording our own sounds for them, which was an interesting experience. Finally, we added doors. While right now they merely possess the awe-inspiring power of opening and closing, they'll eventually be used to lock players into areas for scripted combat encounters and other neat stuff. That's it for this video. To keep up to date on the game, you can subscribe right here on YouTube or check out our website at codeavarice.com. You can follow us on Twitter at codeavarice, follow the artists responsible for all the pretty stuff at Belissa3x3x3, and myself at SpooterW. Thanks for watching.